I want to introduce a friend of mine, Sarah Dagostino. She is an air traffic controller at Orlando Executive Airport. And Sarah, I know you're coming to us by phone because some internet issues, but you're at work today, correct? Did I lose her? I may have lost her.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, there you are. Hi. You want to just tell everybody?
Good. Hello. Yes, I'm at work. So I'm sorry, it is a phone and I have terrible internet here. So I'm going to do the best I can. If you can't hear me or if I fade out, I'll get back as soon as I can. I work as an air traffic controller, Orlando executive. So we're a tower only facility. There's three main types of facilities within the FAA. There's tower approach, which does low level radar, usually below about 10,000 feet, depending where. And
Uh-oh, I think we lost her.
Am I still there?
Yes, there you are.
Yeah.
We lost you for a little bit.
Yeah, I only have a cell phone, unfortunately, because I'm at work. So it keeps going in and out. I don't know how much y'all were able to hear. I was just saying that there's three different kinds of facilities as far as tower, approach or departure control, and then center. So go ahead. I can't see. Okay, so tower and approach are different. Tower is just the tower. Some of them are co-located, but they are actually completely different kinds of facilities. So the tower would be exactly what it sounds like. It's the people in that tower facility are controlling aircraft on the ground and basically for landing and departure. Usually they have anywhere from 5 to 7 miles around the tower for the airspace that's under their control, and it's low level. The approach basically gets everyone in and out of the tower environments. If they're going up higher, they'll give them off to center. If they're not, they will just give them to another controller at the end when they're low level.
Awesome.
So Orlando, I'm going to say Florida in general has probably more air traffic control facilities than just about anywhere except possibly New York, and I would say New York and California might be up there, but just the Orlando area has 4 in these 2 counties. Yes, it's in a tower because they need to see the aircraft. So a lot of what we do in a tower is visual separation. There's a lot of different kinds of separation that we can use for aircraft. The one that requires, that's what I would call the least restrictive, is visual, because if I can provide visual and say I'm watching the 2 aircraft, I don't need 3 miles or 1,000 feet or any other sort of, what RTEC? What is RTEC? That one you're going to have to give me more on. But so in the tower, by being able to do visual, we can keep the planes, a lot more of them, in a lot smaller area.
I'm not following the questions in the chat either. Okay,
I'm trying to read it. I'm like, I'm not sure where I'm going with this.
So Sarah, what type of training is needed to become an air traffic controller?
So there's 3 ways to get as an air traffic controller. The first one, and one of the more common ones, is the through the military. So a lot of people come into it from a military background where they've worked as a controller in the military. The next one is actually through, there's a Cti school. So there's a handful of, I want to say about 10 schools throughout the country. And that number changes and varies, so I don't have the exact number, where it's a 2-year program and you'll come out of it. You won't have a guaranteed job, but it's the first ones that the FAA will pick up. And then every now and then they do what's basically called an off-the-street offering, where as long as you have a 4-year degree and or 3 years job experience, they will give you a chance to take the test. And if you can pass all the training, then you get hired without having any previous military or schooling experience for it.
Great. Does anybody have any questions? Because I know Sarah's going to have to run. Does anyone have any questions for her, specifically about air traffic control?
And Alta, I see
I
that
got
we-
in from an off-the-street bit. The exams can be somewhat, honestly, I don't know the cap of the class Bravo. I'd have to look it up. It's not something I use on and off. My job is very fun. The exams can be very complicated. Really and truly, most of the exams are more of just a skill level assessments. It's not, at no point during the early exams to get hired are you taking tests that are detailing what's a class Bravo versus a class Charlie. It's more of a personality assessment and a skill assessment. The training depends on the facility, anywhere from about 1.5 to 3.5 years. Most of that is on the job training. I've been in on and off for about 10 years. I got hired and then my children were born. And so I took about 6 years off and then just came back in about 2 years ago. You just want me to give you a clearance for an aircraft? Anything in particular you're looking for with it, or what are you trying to get there? Okay, I don't remember the call sign, but it would be United 367. You're clear to Chicago O'Hare Airport. Via radar vectors, then as filed, maintain 10,000 on departure. Expect flight level 320, 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 119.4, squawk 0273.
Nice job, Sarah. Nathan, it has a one of the flight simulators that that's
Nice.
I think where a lot of these questions are coming from him.
Okay. If it's anything you're interested in, what I would say is you can always listen at liveatc.net, which is a really cool way to actually hear live air traffic as they're going through it. And what you will notice, if any kind of aviation thing, it's a lot of repetition. So they've basically taken the vocabulary and we have turned it down to something that, for the most part, you're repeating the same thing over and over in different ways to different aircrafts. And that's to simplify confusion on frequency. For the job I'm doing here at Orlando Executive, it took me about 1 year. The location I was at before this was actually a tower and an approach control, and that was about a little over 3 years of training. So it does vary widely depending on what type of facility and what you're doing there.
Awesome, great. Well, if we don't have any additional questions for Sarah, we're gonna let her head back to work, and thank you so much for joining us. I think I just want to touch on, there's going to be a question in the Google form next week, and it's what are the other aviation careers? So this is definitely one.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Have a great day.
You did the same.
All right, so we've got a couple other guests on as well. I think, let's see, I see Mr. Bundy on, and there is Doug Eatman is on somewhere. I saw him earlier. Ah, there you are. All right. And let me see. I've got Tammy Miller. All right, awesome. And I don't think Garth was able to join us. Garth was our dispatcher, and I know he had to work today. So if he pops on, that's great. But I just wanted to introduce our guest speakers today. Let's see, I will start with, let me start with Doug Eaton. Doug Eaton is you're an aerospace engineer, is that correct?
Yeah, hi, this is Doug Eatman. I'm an aerospace engineer at Piper Aircraft, and I'm currently running the test services department. Can everybody hear all right? So I've worked there in a few different departments. There's a lot of different fields involved in airplane design. There's there's a design group, and there's analysis group, and there's aerodynamics, and then test services is the side of engineering that does a lot of hands-on stuff to test the results of the other teams. So it's divided between kind of a ground test and structures group and flight test. On the flight test side, when there's been a change to an airplane design, or it's a new design altogether, the flight test instrumentation team equips the airplane with extra sensors and computers and data acquisition equipment to record all the test results to establish that it's a safe airplane. Then on the structure side of the group, basically that's where we bend and break things. We make sure they're strong enough. It's a lot of very detail-oriented work to go bang at the end with a kind of a showy result very often. I got into the field. I guess I've kind of been interested in airplanes since I was just a little kid. I flew model airplanes as a kid. I recommend that to anyone that likes airplanes to start there. Went to the University of Florida for aerospace engineering degree, and actually took a job at Piper straight out of school. I've been there 13 years, and I would recommend starting at a small company for anyone else on an engineering path. Similarly, because you get to move around and do a lot of different things, as opposed to getting specialized right off from the beginning. I have a couple pictures of a few test setups at work, if I can figure out how to share my screen, if anyone's interested.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Obie can.
All right.
Yep.
Let's see.
I think we're screen sharing now. Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay. Oh, here we go.
There you are.
So let's see, on the flight test side, so I still see my face here. Do you see a picture on your screen? Some equipment?
We have your desktop, or well,
We're seeing a file manager, and you've clicked on a thing, and it looks like it's trying to open up a film or picture.
Oh, okay. It's just lagging a little bit. Got it.
Are you wireless or hardwired?
I am wireless right now.
Yep, that's the issue then.
Oh, okay. Is it coming up?
No, it's still, the wireless is just, it's not got the strength. You might try the other picture or something. I don't know.
All right. I'll try one other here, and then if that doesn't load, then we'll give up on that and go to questions.
Okay.
and in the chat, Nikolai is suggesting trying to stop share, open, and then share again, see if that works. Sometimes it does. I know on mine it might.
All right, what's everybody seeing now?
Still your files.
Okay. I'll try one more time.
Ah, there we go.
Now
Yep.
we got it.
Okay. So there's a good example of on the structural test side. The kind of light green area you see, that's the wing of a Piper M600 airplane in a full-scale fatigue testing rig. The entire airplane is in there. There's 36 different hydraulic actuators that bend the whole airplane back and forth and in a variety of flight loads to simulate whole lifetimes of the airplane. We can run an entire lifetime worth of stress on the airframe in about 4 to 6 months. So many years of service can be accumulated in a few years of testing, and that's just one of the larger scale structural tests that I have going on. Find it.
I don't know if you saw Under's comment in there, Doug, but.
All right, I'm looking at comments now.
That's probably my reaction when my brother told me how many screens he was looking at for those tests.
Yeah, I don't know if I got to the picture that I actually have one that your brother is in the control room of that test. I'll try one more time to pull it up. I'm having a little trouble here. It won't let me pick the actual photo application. It just opens the folder that the photos are in.
Aww.
Sorry about that.
And if you guys have questions, feel free to put the questions down in the chat. If we don't get to them right now, we'll get to them before we get off the call.
Sure, I'll go ahead and take some questions. The photo share isn't working out real well for me, so go ahead.
That's how much money is it to own the equipment? Under.
I see that one. Is about $250,000 that runs all of those actuators, takes all the feedback, controls all the programmed loads, and records all the data. That's just for basically the computer brain behind it all. The whole test setup and especially the engineering time that goes into setting it up and running it goes into millions of dollars. So let's see. How much does it cost to make a passenger plane? Well, that's a really broad question. The airplane that's in the test fixture, in that picture, the M600, is close to $3 million to buy new. The certification effort, developing, testing, designing that airplane, probably approached $100 million total, and continues. Fatigue testing is an ongoing thing to extend the life of the airplane even after it's certified. What's the best Piper that you have done? My favorite is the PA-28 Aero. That's a fun question, and I am a pilot too, just for fun, in addition to being an engineer. I really do like the Piper Aero. That's a good airplane. The earlier models from right around 1969, 1970 have a shorter wing. They handle really sporty. So it's I'll go with the Aero on that one.
Nice.
Just take notes. How much does it cost to make a glider? Well, I owned a glider for a while, and I'm not so certain about what it takes to develop one from scratch, but a good performing sailplane can be had for in the $15,000 range for a capable glider. Let's see. Best planes you've worked on, and was it difficult to figure out? Well, in engineering, difficult things are what we do. There definitely have been problems with airplanes that I've been involved in the development of that took 5 and 10 times as long as we'd expected to figure out what was really going on and come up with an issue to resolve it. So far, I would say the M600 is probably the most developed airplane that I've been involved in.
Awesome. And I did see it out at Sun and Fun a couple of years ago, so.
Yeah, it's still the Piper flagship.
I was looking for my picture of it to share, but oh, so let's see. How precise, I'm gonna guess it's how precise do you need to be? From Mason.
Well, precision depends on the job being done, of course, but in test and instrumentation work, precision is a big deal. For example, we do material testing sometimes, and we use strain gauges that measure microstrain of material. It's not something you can see. So you know, hundreds of thousandths of an inch is a real dimension. Let's see, I'm gonna try to get, here we go. I have the control room of the fatigue test. And this is John Artman, star of the show here at fatigue test room. All these computers are showing different feedback loops from the airplane I showed earlier with all the hydraulic actuators. So lots of screens with squiggly lines you see here. Every one is showing a command and a measured feedback and an error for each channel that's applying load to the airplane. Some are measuring strains and deflections, how much the airplane is bending, how much the metal is straining. So there's a lot of data there to monitor. Did that picture show up correctly?
Yes, it did. Yep.
All right,
Awesome.
perfect.
And let's see, Ender is asking how many computers in total?
That test has, see, there's a very specialized test controller, which it's not really a normal computer in that sense, that does most of the work. And then there's 7 other computers connected to it to interface and to display data.
Awesome, great.
And I'm finding here I can open the pictures in the background in the Photos app and then point the Zoom meeting to the Photos app. That's how I'm getting it to work. So I'll get something else for you in just a moment.
Ivana wants to know, what is the name of your career again?
I am an aerospace test engineer.
All right, awesome.
I'm going to pull up another picture of the flight test equipment. All right, so here we have a data acquisition rack inside a Piper M600 during flight testing. This is you know, a rack that houses computers and well, data acquisition chassis. All the orange wire that you see in the picture is all sensors that are special for flight tests. In this case, it was flight into known icing that this test program was for. And here we go. This is the airplane that rack is inside, taxiing out to fly up to the Canada border, actually, to pick up ice in flight. But you'll see on the outside of it, there's a lot of silver tape lines where all these wires are exiting the airframe. There's some special sensors on the wing that actually measure the supercooled droplet sizes to make sure the icing conditions are a worst case scenario to show how the airplane handles it. And there's pods underneath the airplane with lots of cameras, and they're actually heated pods, so the cameras don't ice over, so we can get video of how the ice accumulates on the airframe. All right.
All right, awesome.
Any other questions?
Well,
Not seen anything else.
and I think we're gonna move on over to our next guest. And I just wanted to share with everybody, Doug is also an Eagle Scout.
I am. Stick with the Scouts. It's worth it. You'll learn all kinds of things, and the most important of those is probably just how to work with people.
And Doug, if you have more time, you can just hang on and, you know, enjoy the rest of it. We're going to move over to Eric Bundy. Eric Bundy is retired Air Force and a pilot for Delta Airlines. So thank you, Doug, so much for your time. We appreciate it. Loved seeing the pictures. And if you guys, let's move over to Mr. Bundy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Eric, you are muted. Or we can't hear you.
I don't think his mic is working.
We'll try that.
You can turn on your volume. Maybe it's off.
I don't think his mic is working.
Maybe he has to leave and rejoin.
Because his mic is on mute and then it's not no coming out.
Mr. Bundy's pretty tech savvy. He's one of our assistant scoutmasters in Troop 225. And he joined us last year when we were live in person for our tours.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
I have more than one microphone and had the wrong one selected. So you all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. I turned my speakers down so I don't have feedback right now because I didn't have my headsets on. I'm Colonel Eric Bundy. I was a Air Force pilot, instructor pilot for 28 years. I flew C-130s, T-34s, T-37s, and T-38s. I flew in 5 different combat zones, 68 different countries. I now fly for Delta Airlines. I've been flying with them for over 20 years now. And there was a little bit of overlap there. So I've been flying for a total of 35 years. I started when I was 17 years old flying Cessnas. And now I fly the Airbus 330, which is weighs about 525,000 pounds when we're ready for takeoff. So a little bit heavier than the first aircraft that I ever flew. I'm also an Eagle Scout. I got my Eagle Scout in 1984 and started flying shortly after that. About the same time I started driving a car is about the same time I started flying an airplane. Question there, I didn't fly C-17. No, I didn't fly that. I flew C-130s like the picture that you see behind me right there. That's actually me landing in northern part of Afghanistan to resupply a Marine Corps unit up there with their bullets and food and stuff like that they needed. And I stayed in that particular aircraft. I flew that for over 20 years and instructed for most of that time. So I can just start off if there's any questions.
Eric, did you cover?
Somebody says there, how do you get to the place where you can fly the heavy aircraft? You just kind of work your way up. I started with a Cessna 150. Not many of those even flying around anymore. There are 152s, which is a little bit better engine in it. I started with a Cessna 150, which weighs about 1,050 pounds, and worked my way up to bigger and bigger aircraft, and then eventually ended up getting into cargo aircraft for the Air Force, and then on the airlines, started working up that way. Question there, where do you go fly for Delta? I fly, because of the bigger aircraft, only do international. It doesn't make financial sense to do short haul flights with large aircraft. So I only go international. So just within the last 30 days, I've been to Germany and Netherlands and India.
Wow.
Answer Obie, yeah, a little bit. Airline pilot, there's really, if anybody wants to be an airline pilot, there's really two ways to do it. You can either go up the civilian way or you can go up military way. I like the military way. I think it's more challenging because you're not just flying from point A to point B. You're actually doing a mission in between. So that's the military way of doing it. If you're doing the civilian way, you're kind of paying for your own training. I've actually did both ways. I started paying for my training and went up the civilian way, and then crossed over to the military. And then in the meantime there, when I became an instructor in the military, I also got my instructor ratings for the civilian side. So I also, still to this day, I teach flying in small aircraft on the civilian side, as well as flying for Delta. I no longer fly for the Air Force because I retired 2 years ago. 28 years is a long time. Probably some of your parents aren't too much older than that. So 28 years was enough for me. And so now the only thing I do is I fly a little airplane, civilian teaching, and then I also fly the big Airbus 330 for Delta.
There was a. And Mr. Bundy, did you see the question from Jake from 225? What would you say your favorite job in the Air Force was?
Definitely flying. I was also a squadron commander. So I was in charge of a whole bunch of people flying and a whole bunch of aircraft, 20, like the airplane you see behind me. We had 20 of those aircraft that I was responsible for training, all the crews and getting those deployed out. So the deployments, like that picture there, that was a lot of fun. And then just doing something. I did some combat support type stuff. And I also did a lot of humanitarian relief stuff for the United Nations.
Great, awesome.
Have I ever been in a war? Yes, five different wars I was in. It's asking how far have I gone in the Airbus 330? Like I just said, last month I went to Mumbai, India.
There's a lot of questions on your Air Force career, which I thought would happen.
And Iraqi freedom, yes, I was in OEF and OIF. I was also, Logan's asking which wars. So I was in Afghanistan, I was in Iraq, I was also in Haiti, which is, that was a while back. I was also in Bosnia Herzegovina. There's a civil war going on there. And I was also down in Rwanda and Zaire in that area when that civil war was going on. Somebody asked if I ever flew a fighter jet. Yes, I have. Let me see, is there a way for me to share the screen? I do have a couple of pictures, pictures.
Yep. Obie might have to make you a co-host.
Can I share it?
Yep, should be able to. Yeah.
I need to unmute my mic for you to hear me though.
Okay, share screen. Now let me see if I can get it over there. Can you see that picture?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, that's a T-38. I flew that. That was one of the training aircraft, believe it or not. And I got up to Mach 1.3 in that aircraft.
Fine.
And then the C-130, can you see the HUD picture there?
See it behind you, but don't see it on the screen share.
Let's see. How about now?
Nope.
I wish I could see what I'm sharing.
But do you have two screens?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, you might, right now we're looking at the first one. We never did see anything else.
The T-38.
Yes.
Okay, let me see here. Maybe I gotta redo it. I might have to swap screens. Stop share that way. Maybe I do it this way. There we go. Now can you see it?
Looks like a heads-up display.
Yep, that's the heads-up display for the C-130. Believe it or not, this is just a very basic navigation mode. When I'm doing a tactical mission, there's a lot more information on there than what you see now. So it even gets busier than this.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I figured out. And this is one of the missions that we do. Oops, did the C-130s come up?
Right.
Yep.
Okay, good. So that's one of the missions we do, which is a low-level formation. And then that way we can dump a whole bunch of people or a whole bunch of equipment all at one time or in a very short period of time. Somebody asked if I went to the Air Force Academy. No, I went to Georgia Tech. And I got a degree in aerospace engineering, just like the last guest that was talking.
And we got another question. David from New York wanted to know, did you ever fly refueling planes?
No, I did not. And Nathan is asking, why are you at 184 knots at 34,000 feet? That is not a drop. That's an indicated airspeed. So the higher you go, your indicated airspeed drops off. When you're flying a turboprop aircraft, you fly true airspeed. You don't fly Mach number and you don't fly indicated. You fly true airspeed. So we were doing 320 knots true airspeed, and which works out to 184 knots indicated airspeed.
Nice.
Keaton asked what model of the C-130. I flew C-130 E models, and of J models, I flew C models, WC models, and CC 130s in the J area.
Awesome. All right. So, does anyone else have any more questions for Colonel Bundy?
Now, KC-130s, those are refueling helicopters. That's a refueling aircraft.
Ender's always wanting to know how much these aircraft cost. A lot of these ones that mentioned, you can Google search find out what they are.
You can search that. The C-130, like the picture behind me, they started off at $80 million a piece. They're now down to about 40 million because the more you buy, the cheaper they get. So they're about 40 million. The Airbus 330 that I fly, it's about $240 million.
So I have a question for you. What advice would you give to an aspiring pilot who wants to follow similar in your footsteps, basically, and go into the Air Force and then go into the airlines?
Well, you definitely have to stay with your science and your math. If you're not very good at math, or if you don't like math, then you might as well look for another career, because there's a lot of math and a lot of science involved to do it, whether you're doing engineering or being a pilot. You got to be good at math, and we also do mental math. So there's a lot of times you have to be calculating numbers in your head while you're flying the airplane. So you got to be good at that, being able to do numbers quickly, do math problems in your head very quickly. So that's part of it. So you got to stick with the school. You got to keep your grades up, you know, that's pretty much it. Fitness, like sports and stuff like that, being fit is very important, especially if you're flying fighter type aircraft and pulling Gs. I used to routinely pull 6 and 7 Gs for several hours a day. So if you can imagine that would take a toll on your body if you weren't working out. Lifting weights is very important, and running and stuff like that. So you have to stay in shape, and you have to be good at math. And then you have to be tenacious. You have to stay with it. It's a lot of studying. Not only your schoolwork part, but then just doing the flying part is a lot of studying. And especially when you get in instruments, it's a lot of studying. For flying that airplane behind me, the C-130, my stack of regulations that I was responsible for, if you printed it out on double-sided paper and then just stacked it up, which I did one time, it's about a 4.5 foot tall stack of paper. That's all the regulations I needed to know to fly that airplane.
That's a lot. Wow. Well, we just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, obviously, for your service. And there's tons of questions coming through. But ladies and gentlemen, we kind of got to wrap up this segment as we don't want to go over our whole time. And Colonel Bundy, thank you so much for joining us today. If there's any final words.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so we are going to move on to Tammy Miller. Tammy Miller is a field manager for a company called Fly Exclusive. And I have a short little video that I am going to share from them. We're kind of almost shift directions here. And let me pull my thing up. Hold on one second. The video coming, there's no sound for it. It's just the video. All right, awesome. All right, so what we just saw was the promotional video for Fly Exclusive. They are a charter company here in the United States. And someone writes fancy, it looks cool. Oh, and if you guys look in the chat, Mr. Bundy put in some answers to some of the questions that you guys had. If I can find Tammy, where are you? I know I just saw you a second ago. If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what your company does.
How about that?
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, everybody. Those are some really big shoes I'm following, Alta. So, but I work for a company that's a private charter company. It's Fly Exclusive, and we have a second certificate that is Fly Exclusive International. So we fly domestically and internationally, and we fly anyone from a CEO to movie stars to political candidates, whomever wants to fly. We have 74 plus aircraft. Our fleet is made up of Citations. We have CJ3s, XLs, and Sovereigns, and Citation 10s, and G4s. My job is to manage the fuel for our fleet, and that may sound not so impressive to some of you that want to go fly, but I am responsible for the single most expense that our company makes or has. So it's not just about me, like you guys learn in Scouts. It's teamwork. So all the pilots that you hear, we have a lot of retired military pilots that come and work for our company, not only as a pilot, but some of them are in our maintenance control, in our dispatch, in our mechanics. So it's a really fun industry, no matter which direction you go in it, whether it's a pilot or behind the scenes. So if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer.
One of the ones was, who's the most famous person you have flown with?
I don't know if you say the most famous. I mean, we've flown basketball players. honestly, from my perspective, I never look at the PAX manifest because I'm busy working out and negotiating fuel pricing. Yesterday, I will say, with Fly Exclusive, we have partners, Jet Club owners that fly, and we also broker from different brokers. So a broker had brokered a trip with us, and the young man was a YouTuber. And so we ended up on YouTube yesterday for Pokemon, which is quite interesting. But we have flown Shaq, the basketball player. We have flown several movie stars back in the past. When I was with Seagrave, it was we'd flown Anna Nicole, and you just never know who's going to board the plane. But since COVID, the demographics have changed. People have gone from commercial airlines to private airlines, private charter. Those that have money to make this flight but never chose to spend their money on a private airline or private charter are now deciding they want to fly private, or at least try it. And as Alta and I both know, once you go private, if you can afford it, you never want to go back to commercial. So it's nice to see the demographics change. You all know with COVID, a lot of the airline industry, and I hate that for the airline industry, but a lot of that was put to a halt. And even with the private industry, we lost a lot of revenue due to COVID. But it makes a huge difference when you're flying on one aircraft that you rent the whole aircraft for your family, your pets, or whatever. And I keep seeing, how much does this cost? These trips can range anywhere from 10 to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you're not just paying for a seat on an airline. You're paying for the whole aircraft. You're paying for the pilots. You're paying for, if you book a trip that's a week long, you're paying for overnights wherever you stay. So it's anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 plus an hour to charter an aircraft. And that's not my forte. So I'm just estimating we have 340 plus employees, 215 pilots, and we're growing. So we're a growing company, and I've been doing the same job since 2002 with a few years of break. And I absolutely love it. So no matter if you're female, male, you can do this. There's so much in the private charter industry that's out there, whether it's a dispatcher, a controller, a pilot, anything in admin. Aviation is an awesome world to be in.
Awesome. Thank you, Tammy. So Tammy and I used to work together. We were, actually one of my clients when I was selling jet fuel. And gosh, we met almost 11 years ago. Yeah, 11 years ago. So I used to work for a company called Signature Flight Support that, where these private planes lent. Most people don't really hear about it, but that's where the planes park. They have to park, they have to get fuel. And that is how, Tammy and I met. So it's a very different industry from the airlines, from, what, Mr. Bundy was talking about. Some of the stuff that Doug was talking about, the Pipers, we see those obviously, but they need a place to park. They need a place for the pilots, for the passengers to gather. When you fly privately, you don't necessarily have TSA. There are a few airports that do have it due to security reasons. It is a very, very different experience. And like Tammy said, once you try that, you don't really want to go back. Those big plush leather seats are definitely the way to travel. but it does cost a lot of money. I think I looked into it one time and it was $5,000 an hour. And you pay for everything. But it is worth it if that's how you want to travel. So does anyone else have any questions on the corporate world of aviation? Let's see, I'm looking through the things and it says, so one of the questions is, where do they fly in and out of? And I can answer, yeah, Tammy, you want to answer that one?
And that's a good question because we're based out of Kinston, North Carolina. And if you look that up on the map, you'll think, whoa, because there's nothing in Kinston, North Carolina much. So that's our home base. We bring our planes back for maintenance there as often as we can. But we are a point-to-point sales. So we'll sell a trip to, let's say, Teterboro, and we're looking for someone who's wanting a trip back to wherever. If it's Florida, and then you're wanting someone to book a trip from Florida to your next stop. So we're point-to-point all over the world.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Tammy, for joining us and sharing us a little bit about what Fly Exclusive does. And if there's stuff that pops in the chat, we can answer it through the chat. So we are going to move. Any final, any final comments for the kids?
Well, I just want to say, stay up with your grades in school, no matter if it's through the military or civilian way. Either way, aviation is a great career. So, but no matter what, stick with it and be a team player. And I appreciate you, Alta, for asking me to join, although I'm not the Air Force or, the great pilots that they were looking for, but aviation's a great industry regardless. So I would definitely, if I was younger and know what I know now, I would have been in aviation a long time.
Awesome. Great job. I think you did a fantastic job, Tammy, and thank you. And our mission really is to show everybody that there's more to being a pilot to aviation. So I think we definitely accomplished that today. And if you want, you can hang on, and we have got a exciting video coming up that's one of my favorite airplanes.